I get a lot of comments criticizing me for always talking about things that happened in high school. They say I'm dwelling too much on the past. I need to focus on the present. Look, in my 37 years living on this planet, I have less life experience than the average teenager. Okay, the average 17-year-old has experienced more social milestones than I have. And that's not an exaggeration, it's just a fact. I've never slept with a woman. I only had my first kiss like last year, and nothing really came of that, by the way. I've never had a friend group, never had anything resembling a social circle. I've never even had one person I could call a close friend, like someone I could confide in, someone I could call up if I was bored and we could just chill and hang out and shoot the shit. I've never had that. As big a loser as I am now at age 37 with no wife, no kids, and no job, still living with my mom, as big a loser as I am now, I've always been this big a loser. But at least up until the age of maybe 28, something like that, I did at least participate in society up to that point. I went to school, I worked different jobs over the years. So at least I did get some life experience out of that. Not as much as you might think, just because of the way I am. I've always been sort of a passive observer. That's something I want to talk about a bit more here in a minute. But to be frank, I don't have that much to talk about over the past decade of my life. And what little noteworthy happenings there were, I've already talked about most of it. But just recently, I think I've come to a realization about the way I've always lived my life. When I look back on my life, there's really just one main reason why I've always been so far behind and why I was never able to live a normal life and do all the normal things that most people do, like dating and hanging out with friends and everything like that. And it's not my looks. I think for a lot of guys in my position, it is their looks that hold them back. And now that I'm old and bald, my looks definitely are a significant hurdle. But I did have a brief period when I was younger when I was at least kinda decent looking. But there's a reason why I was still a loser then, even though I didn't have to be. But before I go into detail on what exactly I think my problem is, I just want to talk a bit about my experience going through life, seeing everyone around me reach all these normal milestones, while I always just felt like I'm stuck on the sidelines. I have this one memory from when I was, I think, 15 that seems kind of inconsequential, but it's always stuck with me. And there's a reason it's always stuck with me. And now I finally realize what that reason is. So there's a water park near where I used to live. There's a little path that goes alongside the outside of the water park, right next to the fence, which is just a really tall chain link fence. And there's a path on the inside of the fence too that leads from one section of the park to another. So I would sometimes just walk that path on the outside because it also connected further down with some nature trails through the woods and everything. So it was a nice walk. So I remember one time walking that path on a nice summer day. I was at the part right next to the fence, and then I saw on the other side of the fence, walking in the opposite direction, so coming towards me, it was a group of guys and girls from my school. They were inside the water park, so the girls were all wearing bikinis and everything. But I saw them from kind of far away, and one of the girls was a girl that I definitely had noticed the year before at school, and I really wanted to get to know her better. She had actually randomly come up to me and talked to me a couple times, so she seemed like a nice person. And maybe she was attracted to me. I don't know. But she did try talking to me the year before at school. So as I kept walking, I saw there was some kind of commotion going on. And then as I was getting closer to where they all were, I could see this girl that I liked. I don't remember exactly what she said, but basically she stormed off from the rest of the group. She yelled something that made it seem like she was just mad at everyone in the group, and then she stormed off. and she turned and walked away from them. So she started walking in the same direction I was walking in, but she was on the other side of the fence. And the rest of the group just walked past me. None of them even noticed me, although, I mean, maybe most people wouldn't notice someone on the other side of the fence, but also most of them probably didn't even know who I was. But yeah, so I kept walking and I saw the girl I liked. She went and sat in a swing that was right on the other side of the fence. She was facing the opposite direction, facing away from where I was, but she was just sitting there in the swing, moping. And I remember my heart was pounding because I felt like it's one of those moments that seemed like it was just designed by the universe specifically just for me to give me a special opportunity. Because the likelihood of me just happening to be walking by at the same time when this happened with all these kids from my school, when I actually went to a school that I wasn't even zoned for. So these kids didn't even live close to the water park like I did. And then the one girl from my school that, like, literally the only girl I think that ever came up and tried talking to me the whole school year, I just so happened to be walking by when this happened with her. It was like a scenario designed for me, put in front of me intentionally by God, just so I could have this special opportunity. And I just remember my heart pounding out of my chest. And I was thinking as I was walking closer and closer to where she was at, I was thinking, I have to say something. I have to. This is my moment. It was like the freaking song from 8 Mile. I was just like B Rabbit, but instead of my moment being a rap battle, my moment was trying to talk to this cute girl I knew from school. But just like Eminem in the movie, at the beginning of the movie, I choked. Like my heart was pounding, and I even stopped for a few seconds when I got to where she was, and I was just looking at her through the chain link fence. She was like 20 to 30 feet away from me, probably, just sitting there on the swing. She probably would have loved for me to talk to her because, I mean, she just got in a big fight with all her friends. It really was the perfect moment. But I just looked at her for a few seconds through the fence, trying to work up the courage, and then I talked myself out of it in my head and I walked away. I think it was less than 10 years after that, that girl died from an overdose, by the way. Now, I'm not saying I could have saved her if only I had said something, but who knows what would have happened. It really did feel like that moment was given to me. But like I always do, I just let it pass me by. And I think about that moment and how I failed to act in that moment. It's just very emblematic of how the entirety of the rest of my life has gone so far. I remember too, as it was happening, as I was walking away, I remember justifying it in my head like, well, she's on the other side of the fence, as if that would matter at all. It's just a chain link fence. We easily could have had a conversation. But even that, the chain link fence is kind of like how I've always had these little mental blocks that keep me from doing what I know I should be doing, but the excuses are always so convoluted and nonsensical. But that's how I justify my own cowardice in my head. Now, going back to the broader point, I think what was actually a pivotal moment for me in my development as an unlikable loser chud was back in middle school, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. That's when I was really starting to really feel attraction towards females. I mean, that's how it is for everyone going through puberty and everything. But, well, I know I'm not alone in this, but I just remember how badly I wanted to get a girlfriend and have my first kiss and just experience all those firsts together. I would see other guys my age actually living the life I wanted to live, but I could just never figure it out. I remember thinking, like, how do you even go from seeing a girl to then being her boyfriend? Like, how do you even talk to her? What are you supposed to say? And what would always happen, I usually didn't really develop much of what you would call a crush on any girls. There were certain girls at my school I thought were really attractive, but I never talked to any of them enough to get to know them well enough to where I would say I had a crush on them, if that makes sense. But there were certain girls I noticed for sure, and I really, really wanted to get to know them. I wanted to talk to them, but it's just like I just I didn't know what to say. And it's not just that I was afraid to approach them because of my social anxiety. That was also true. Like that was definitely a part of it, but it's like I thought it would be inappropriate for me to just go up to a girl out of the blue who I had no reason to talk to when I knew that my true intention was just that I wanted to talk to her and get to know her just as a means to the end of maybe her being the girl that I got to have all these firsts with. Obviously, looking at it with my adult chud brain, there's obviously nothing wrong with wanting to talk to a girl and get to know her better just initially based off her looks and how her looks make you feel. That's just normal. That's how relationships usually start. But as a hormonal middle school boy, I felt guilty about having those feelings toward all these girls when I didn't actually know them, or when I didn't know them very well. So I remember I would always see one of these girls I was attracted to. She'd get into a relationship, and I'm not talking about any one girl in particular. I mean, I would see different girls that I liked getting into relationships, or I would see them flirting with guys in the hallway, or whatever the case. And I would always wonder, how did he get to know her? Like, do they go to church together? Have they just known each other since they were little from going to school together all these years? Like, I was always trying to figure out, how does this guy know that girl so well that he knew her well enough to ask her out and everything? That's where my mind automatically went. I was so naive, I legitimately couldn't understand that a girl would date a guy she doesn't know that well. And I remember it just blowing my mind one time in the eighth grade. I saw this girl that mostly hung around with the skater clique. I saw her talking to this popular football player in the hallway, and she was like laughing and touching his arm and everything. And I was just like, how? Like he's not even in the same social circle. Like I just couldn't wrap my head around it. I thought you had to be good friends with a girl before you progressed your relationship to a romantic level. And I thought it was wrong. Like, I thought it would be morally wrong for a guy to just go hit on a girl just because he thought she was hot. And I thought most girls would see it that way too. So even if I did try just randomly approaching a girl, I thought it couldn't work because she would see right through it and she would be offended. That's how naive I was. That wasn't even from all the gaslighting we see on social media these days about how guys should never approach girls that are literally just trying to exist. You know, we didn't even have social media back then. This was before MySpace, even. But back then, I don't know if it was just from all the TV shows I watched or just from what I picked up on listening to people around me growing up, but somehow I was conditioned all the way back then to feel like it was morally wrong to act on, and not even just to act on it, but I felt guilty for even feeling as attracted to certain girls as I did when I didn't even know them. And I thought everybody felt that way. So I remember feeling like that for a while. Then there was a new guy that started at my school in the middle of the school year. And immediately I noticed girls in my classes were talking about him. Then he started dating one of those girls that I felt really attracted to after he had only started at our school like 3 days earlier. And I remember thinking, like, okay, there is no way that they actually know each other at all. At best, they met 3 days ago. And that's when it started to sink in that most people actually don't care at all about knowing each other before they start dating. Attraction is enough. Even today, it's hard for me to escape that mindset. I have this deep seated sense of guilt about my own feelings. Ultimately, I think it stems from the same internal belief that holds me back from making friends with other guys. I don't feel guilt about the idea of wanting to make friends, but the source of the issue is still that whenever I feel like okay, maybe this is a moment where I could interject with my own anecdote or just a funny quip or whatever, actually speak up and say something to someone, which is the first step in every friendship. I always don't do it because deep down, I feel like I'm not good enough. Like, whatever I said, they would just be bothered by the fact that I said anything at all. Basically, it's just a very deep seated lack of confidence. I think what it all boils down to is inhibition. Specifically, I have a very high level of inhibition, and it's just controlled every aspect of my life since as far back as I can remember. I even think it might be at least partially responsible for me going bald at such a young age, just because of all the stress. I'm always stressing out about every little thing. That's how I end up feeling guilty over completely normal feelings, or I just mentally talk myself out of ever taking any kind of social initiative because I can't help but think about all the ways it could go wrong. And that makes my social anxiety worse. And the years upon years of social failure and isolation lowers my confidence even more, which makes those limiting thoughts in my head even louder. I don't even know which thing started first. Like, is it my deep seated sense of unworthiness that led to me having crippling social anxiety? Or did my social anxiety lead to the feeling of unworthiness? I don't even know. But ultimately, I think the source is that I have very high inhibition, which is kind of a double edged sword because there are positives to high inhibition. I'm pretty sure the same way I automatically overthink every minuscule social situation, it's the same mechanism in my brain that makes me automatically think critically about every random piece of information I come across. And I think that kind of critical thinking is good. But if I didn't have the social inhibition, then I wouldn't have the critical thinking either. It's the same process being applied to two different scenarios. And I do lean toward thinking that it's some kind of deep seated desire to always please everyone. That's what made me develop this automatic overanalysis response. Because when I think about all the missed opportunities throughout my life and all the times I just stood there alone watching everybody else live the life I wanted to live, I would sometimes have the impulse to do something or say something, such as in the case with this girl at the water park, but I always had that inhibition in my brain preventing me from acting. It always made me come to the same conclusion, which is, nah, I shouldn't do that. That would be stupid. They would just laugh at me. I'd just be embarrassing myself. Part of it is I worry about, well, even if I knew the perfect thing to say to get a positive reaction out of this one person, there's this other person nearby too that wouldn't approve of that. So that wouldn't please everybody. Somebody would end up upset, even if someone else it ends up being a positive reaction with someone else, somebody would be upset. Which is a very stupid way to think. Obviously, you will never please everybody, and you shouldn't want to please everybody anyways. But I can't help it. These thoughts are automatic. It's not something I can turn off. Like, I can't just adopt a different mindset. That's not how it works. I feel like I wasted years of my life trying to please everybody. Not even just talking about my lack of a social life, but also with going to college, getting these STEM degrees. I have a bachelor's degree in an engineering discipline and a master's degree in computer science. And I got these degrees because that's what I thought was safe to do. I shouldn't have even gone to college at all. I should have just tried to make YouTube videos from the start because I did want to do that. All the way back in like 2008, I already wanted to make YouTube videos or do something on the internet to make money. I was really more interested in trying to make a monetizable blog or something of that sort at the time. But I should have done that. Instead, I wasted years of my life and I wasted like 40 something thousand dollars just to have the privilege of getting these useless degrees that currently are not helping me at all to find a job. I have something inside me that makes me automatically just absolutely powerless to resist societal pressure and this deep seated internal desire to not upset anybody. I've let it control me my entire life, and that's what's made me such a fucking loser. And it's only recently, when I more or less just gave up and dropped out of society, that now I'm starting to have some small amount of success. And I'm having that success right here with this YouTube channel. Obviously, I know this may very well be just a very fleeting success. It might be temporary. But I only got this far in the first place because one day I just said, fuck it. I'm going to just turn on the mic and talk about how much my life sucks. And I'm not going to worry about whether or not anybody actually watches it. And it didn't happen overnight, but I kept doing it, making these videos, because I'm obsessed with making videos. It's my hobby. It's one of the only things I actually feel motivation to do. So I kept doing it, and now it's starting to pay off. Now, going back to that girl I liked that was sitting on the other side of the fence at the water park, there's nothing I could have done to resist those thoughts in my head that made me talk myself out of talking to her. Even today, I know darn well I can't overcome my social anxiety and all of my social inhibition. That's always going to be there. It always has been there. So that's not something I can fix. I just have to accept that I am most likely never going to be able to get to know a woman or have any sort of meaningful relationship with a woman. And I think that's the only thing I can do in my position. And really, as a man that has only been rejected by society in recent years, I think usually now when I have those internal thoughts where I'm doubting myself in a social situation, those thoughts are actually correct. In most cases, I'm probably not going to have a positive social interaction. I mean, just look at me. The only women I could even possibly hope to get with are like old and ran through. I know that's not polite to say that, but that's just a fact. That's just a fact. And yeah, I know you're probably thinking, well, just shave your head, trim your beard, and all that. Get some nice clothes. Yeah, sure. Like, obviously, I'm not looking the best I could look right now, but I'm telling you, it doesn't get that much better. Okay? It doesn't get a whole lot better than this. So I just accept my fate. Okay? Like, I'm not going to get an attractive woman. I'm not going to get any woman. Okay? I accept that. I just accept it. And it's better this way. I accept that I am going to spend the rest of my life alone. I accept that the majority of people do not like me. I'm not a likable person. But I'm trying really hard these days to just accept that and focus on being able to enjoy my time alone and just enjoy the time I have to spend with my baby cousin and to spend with my parents, even when they piss me off sometimes and we don't always get along exactly, but they're the only people that actually want to be around me sometimes. Okay? So I accept that. I accept that that's what I have in my life, and I'm doing my best to appreciate it. You know, my options are I can either enjoy what I have and try to appreciate what I have, or just dwell on all the bad shit and suffer even worse for it. And also, you know what? All of you that watch these videos and you tune in every time I drop a new video, I cannot tell you enough how much I truly appreciate each and every one of you. Honestly, it's, you guys have changed my life just in the past few months. My life has changed. Like, I'm experiencing a very small amount of success here on YouTube, and that has been everything to me. Wake up these days and I actually feel like a pretty strong sense of motivation to work and to work on, writing down my thoughts and work on putting these videos together, because I have people that tell me that this means something to them. And that means a lot to me. So I just want to say thank you to all of you. And yeah, but yeah, screw it. Screw this broken society. If you are an excess male like me, then in my opinion, you should probably just accept your fate and focus on doing what you want to do. Obviously, if you got to work a 9 to 5 to pay your bills, then you got to do what you got to do. But I don't know. I'm lucky I have parents that have been willing to support me, so I could just drop out of society. So I get that most of you can't exactly do the same thing, but man, just follow your dreams. Unironically, I say that completely in earnest. Follow your dreams, and maybe you could end up as successful as I am. Okay, that part was a joke, but seriously, fuck it. Try doing it your way for once. If society keeps rejecting you, try doing it your way. If anything I said here resonates with you, or if you just want to dive into the darkest depths of the mind of an absolute chud, please consider watching some of my other videos. There's also some secret videos you can watch for free on my Patreon. No sign up required, so check that out. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.